Hello, my fellow angels and demons. First, I wish to apologize to everyone who's been waiting for that video. Life got busy again, and my brain decided to hyperfixate on D&D forever. And also, looking back, Elementals might not become the main content on my channel as I once hoped for. Simply because there are a lot of things that happen in those roleplays that I cannot talk in videos. For reasons. I'll still make content from time to time, but not as much as I had once hoped for. In any case, I still wanted to finish up the introducing characters, and don't worry, the last video, aka talking about the villains, shouldn't take months to do. Also, let it be known that I never stopped preventing myself from cursing, so do not be surprised if you hear curse words to describe these characters. If you want to catch up, I'd recommend rewatching the other 3 videos so everything is fresh in your mind as you watch this one. The links will be in the description, so go check before continuing. You done? Done? Okay, in that case, without further ado, let's jump right in. The group that we will talk about here is called the Chaos Seekers, and they work under the orders of the villains, or more specifically under one of them, like how Josh and the others used to be. However, they have not been redeemed yet, but canonically they are very close to be. They're not evil, they're simply a group of friends stuck on the wrong side. For my sake, I'll tell their names now and we'll show them afterwards. So, Derek, Asher, Carol, Connor, Cosmo, Keith, and Cookie. Though Cookie joined way after they got taken by the villains. All of them, aside from Cookie, come from broken homes, and they met in a park during their childhood. Derek was the first to always go in the park to get away from his home. Soon he met Asher, who ran away from his abusive family, and soon the boys became friends. Then they befriended Carol, and eventually Connor and Cosmo. Keith joined the group later on after they rescued him. They would live in a hideout they created together, away from everyone. A group of friends who could rely on each other and help each other get over the trauma of their awful and broken homes. They were still kids, though, and were easily convinced to follow a particular villain for a better life, which of course turned out to be a lie. But what other choice did they have? None. They went from children on the run to pawns trained to be used in battle. However, we'll save them. That is a promise Dark and Stormy made to themselves. Now that the context is in place, let's see them in more details. First, we will talk about Derek Meekins, the first member of the Chaos Seekers, and unfortunately the one who will be the hardest to save. His parents divorced soon after he was born because his father was cheating on his mother. The stress of the cheating and the pregnancy caused the mother to die of illness soon after, and thus Derek was raised only by his father. Derek's personality and view of people, specifically women, has been influenced greatly by his asshole of a dad who kept inviting multiple women into his home, and even used Derek's innocence to win over some of them, which in turn, as Derek grew up, made him become a huge flirt who clearly does not know how to talk and treat girls correctly, and is quite the asshole. If Derek wasn't out to help his dad, he was left alone inside the house, or he would go play in the park. Surprisingly, despite everything pointing to him being the least loyal person ever due to his upbringing, it's quite the opposite. Derek's loyalty is his most prominent quality. Before the group was taken away, his loyalty to his friends, especially Asher, who we consider a brother, was very clear. Unfortunately, after the group was found, the villain in charge of them stole some of Derek's memories. He feared that Derek's loyalty to Asher would compromise his loyalty to him alone, and stealing the memories would ensure Derek would never betray him. That alone is the only reason Derek is the leader, because he is easy to control and keep in line. Derek is meticulous and have unwavering loyalty under the personality of an asshole who shows his care throughout tough love, unaware of the reality he's in, and unaware of how broken inside he truly is. Next, we will talk about Asher Corin, second in command, considered his boss's right arm, and yet he is the first one to even think about betraying him. Asher comes from a rich but very strict family. He had no freedom of choice. His parents decided of who he was supposed to become, even if it wasn't what Asher wanted. And if Asher refused to comply, they would resort to physical violence against him, which of course made him run away from home when he was only 9. That's how he met Derek, and where he learned to be like himself. Derek helped Asher come out of his shell, and with his help managed to befriend the others as time went on. However, it came to a halt after they were found and turned into pawns. He never knew why Derek suddenly seemed to have forgotten how close they were, and that sudden change caused Asher to become someone else to survive. From one abusing place forcing him to be another person, to another one. It even got to a point where he had simply forgotten his true self, simply acting and mimicking the people around him. However, despite this, the true Asher would shine through whenever there was a need to protect his friends. If you thought their boss wasn't physically and mentally abusive, I'm not sure what you were expecting. But Asher would always put his friend's safety before his. The true turning point for him, however, was after he met Stormy. Curiosity filled his mind as he literally risked his life just to go talk to her in secret, and since then, the two would meet up regularly at the old clock tower just to talk together. Stormy helped Asher become his true self again, bit by bit, and the strength to finally say, "You know, my friends and I deserve better than this." Though, for now, he has to keep being a pawn. He will not let himself stay as one forever, though. Asher is loyal, kind-hearted, and caring, the complete opposite of what his boss wanted him to be. He will gladly take the blame if it meant saving his friends. He's such a sweetheart, please, someone help him. Also, in case it wasn't obvious by now, yes, he is the character we ship Stormy with. I told you couldn't escape, Stormy. Next up is Carol. No last names because she abandoned it out of pure hatred and spite. She used to live with her father, who was a hardcore alcoholic, always drunk, and would often be physically abusive. Since her father worked night shifts and he was crippling under debt, Carol had to learn how to take care of herself at a very young age. She was 6 for God's sake. She took care of the food, the chores, and even practiced her magic in between. She was forced to grow up and be responsible because her father certainly would not take care of anything. She met Derek and Asher the day she left the house because she just couldn't handle the atmosphere in there, and the 3 of them became friends. The 3 of them were the ones that created the hideout that became their new home for them, Connor, Cosmo, and Keith. After becoming pawns for their boss, however, Carol became more strict and snappy. The embodiment of touch me and you're dead, quite literally. She only shows her softer side to Asher and Connor, as they're the ones she feels closest to. But otherwise, she's sharp, bold, and blunt. She has perfect control of her magic, to the point her hair can be on fire constantly without burning her or things around her. Despite her tough exterior, she has a lot of self-esteem and self-image issues that she desperately tries to hide. She hates her boss, but keeps it low in order to not get hurt and not raise suspicions on Asher, herself, and the others. Next up is Connor Rogers. Out of all the Seekers, he is the strongest, most powerful one, with perfect grip on his magic like Carol does. He comes from a negligent home. His parents sent him off to live with his cousin, his uncle, and his aunt, and they never came back for him. His aunt and uncle were not any better. The uncle didn't give a damn about the kids and didn't do anything to help, and the aunt was abusive to her own son, and she would lock Connor up in the garage because she was afraid of him due to his lack of expressions, and because he was so silent she could never hear him enter a room. She also feared Connor because he would always somehow find a way to get out of the garage and take care of his cousin without her noticing until she walked into a room he was in. One day when his aunt was passed out drunk, he took his cousin out on a stroll in the park, and that's where they met Derek, Asher, and Carol. After discussing, the trio told Connor that he and his cousin were welcome to live in their hideout, which he gladly accepted. Connor was never one to show emotions often, but it practically almost never happened after they became pawns. Connor would play his role as the obedient and silent soldier, but he would observe and care for his friends from the sideline. In fact, he was the first to notice the change in Asher, and the first to join and protect Asher when the idea of one day leaving this awful place was talked about between the two. Until a time comes, though, he keeps his role and their boss has no idea that Connor is even plotting against him. Connor is strong, sneaky, despite being freaking 6'2", and caring, He doesn't show emotions often, but when he smiles, it's truly worth it. Do not hurt his cousin, his friends. Actually, just don't even attempt to piss him off. He will become unstable and dangerous, and only one person can calm him down. He is extremely protective of his cousin and his friends. Next is Cosmo Maris, the basically mad scientist of the group, and Connor's cousin. Due to how different personality-wise he and Connor are, literally no one expects these two to be related, but here we are. You know most of his story through Connor, but what I did not mention is that Cosmo never once realized that his mother was abusive to him. He thought that being hit was a sign of love and never understood the true meaning behind the abuse. He started to get better mentally after living with Connor and his friends in the hideout, only to go downhill really fast after they became pawns. Another villain took interest in Cosmo and basically molded him to become completely insane and unpredictable, willing to kill creatures for experiments such as creating another snake doll and creating Damien. Yeah, Cosmo's the one who created Damien. Almost sadistic at times and yet still acting like a child who doesn't quite understand how dangerous his actions are. The only thing keeping him from being a lost cause is Connor's love and care for him, as well as Cosmo's love for Martha. That's right, during the first meeting, which was a battle, Cosmo fell in love at first sight with Martha, and instead of being completely crazy, he was docile and calm. He wouldn't attack anyone unless they got too close to Martha. That change caused the villain to attempt to kill Martha out of spite for, quote, ruining his hard work, but each attempts were failures. Slowly but surely, with the help of Connor and the others, Cosmo slowly starts regaining sanity, but he's still very hyper and unpredictable. He still bites people as a sign of affection, but he's learning that it's not. Very happy and cheerful, he genuinely cares for his friends in his own strange way, and will follow them wherever they decide to go. Next up, we'll talk about Keith, the youngest of the group and the one with anger issues. Keith was the last to join the group as he was stuck inside his home. The truth is, Keith had never been allowed outside of his home. He didn't even know how the city looked like. His parents were never diagnosed, but it was clear that something was wrong with them. They were paranoid of everything and would do a lot of illegal stuff to get by, such as making and selling illegal drugs. They were so paranoid of being found out that they decided that the best option for them was locking up their son and barely giving him the basic needs to survive because they didn't want him to risk sneaking out and tell everyone what they were doing. His parents were completely insane. The only thing Keith ever knew was his room and the bit of forest he could see through his barred window. One day he heard voices from outside and he looked out to see 5 kids older than him: Derek, Asher, Carol, Connor, and Cosmo. Keith was surprised as he had never seen people aside from his parents before, and he couldn't help but stare. Thank God he did, because that's how Connor noticed him locked up and how badly he looked. It didn't take long before the 5 kids worked together to get Keith out of here and just bolt away from the house. Keith didn't understand what was going on, but he didn't care. He just wanted to be out. He soon started living with his new friends, who started showing him how to write and read and other stuff he had missed out. He was still very young when they turned into pawns, but he was kept around because the villain saw potential in him. However, that didn't stop them from making sure Keith never went outside, either unless he was accompanied by another seeker for missions. He still doesn't know how the city looks like even to this day. Keith is hot-headed and often angry. He curses a lot and tries to put up a tough front to gain more respect and hope that his boss will finally trust him enough to go out on his own. In vain. He loves and cares for his friends more than anything, even if he tries to deny it. He's still just a child, however, a child desperate for freedom for himself and his friends. And finally, the last of the Chaos Seekers, Cookie. Remember how I said Cosmo created another snake doll before Damien? Well, here she is. She was originally an anaconda living at the zoo, but was kidnapped and killed by Cosmo in order to make said experiment. Which of course made her wary of Cosmo and not like him for a good while, but she eventually got attached to the Seekers, some more than others, and was officially considered one of them. Cookie's snarky and, let's be honest, a bit bitchy. She can be a bit sadistic at times, and she loves to scare people. It's very easy to hate her since she really doesn't seem to care about anyone other than herself, but it's not true. She cares for the Seekers a lot, especially Keith. While these two used to not get along, after a while, Cookie started constantly being near Keith, looking out for him like a mother would. She will definitely bite you if she deems you as a threat to her and her friends. Alongside Asher, Carol, Connor, Cosmo, and Keith, she too is willing to betray their boss if it means getting a better life, free of those chains for all of them. And thus was the Chaos Seekers. God, they need help. Thankfully, Stormy and I already have an idea of how the redemption arc will go, so don't worry, they will be saved. I just have no clue when we'll actually get to that roleplay, but it's fine. For now, however, we will have to dive in the last video, the villains video, and finally, I'll stop repeating that word over and over. Once again, I cannot stress enough how this is not for little kids. Be careful, and until next time, my fellow angels and demons. I am once again recording this in the morning because I clearly did not learn my lesson last time. Why am I like this? First, we will talk about Derek Meekins, the first member of the Chaos Seeker. Now that the context is in place, let's see them in more details. Elementals might not become the main content on my channel as I once hoped for. God damn it, Luna! All of you stop! From one abusing place for insing... Next up is Carol. No last names because you have been... Next up is Carol. No last names because she abandoned it. As well as Cosmo's love for Cosmo's love for Martha.